It has been way too long since I said this, but I did a Pokemon challenge. My life as a gamer has been complicated since I got my new computer. Overall, it's better than my old machine, but there were some hurdles I had to overcome. Not gonna dwell on it, but it's been annoying. I'm there though, like I'm where I want to be at this point, so you're gonna start seeing more content like this from me. Point is, I'm doing another one. I did Pidgey in Generation 2, which was a lot of fun because even though Pidgey is not a great Pokemon, there are a lot of new moves and stuff in Generation 2 that make it more viable to play with. If you haven't seen that, I'd recommend going to check that out so I can get views on it. But today, because that last one was Pidgey in Generation 2, Pidgey not being the regional bird for those games, I decided I wanted to do Hoothoot in Generation 1, which isn't really possible because it's not in the Generation 1 games, but it is in FireRed and Leaf Green. So I booted up a ROM of FireRed and used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to give myself Hoothoot in place of Charmander, so that by the end of the game I'll have a flying type like I would have if I had gotten Charizard. And if I'm not mistaken, the rival's Blastoise does have ice moves? I could be wrong about that, I haven't checked. But if so, he'll still be super effective against me, just like he would have been against Charizard, making the run a little bit more challenging. Now keep in mind, this is not a timed run. I'm not trying to do this in the least amount of time that I physically can. I'm just trying to see if I can do it. So this isn't going to be super efficient or anything, but it should still be interesting. In fact, I do all the regular early game stuff, and then the first interesting part comes about pretty much immediately. If you look over on the right of your screen, you'll see Hoothoot's level up moveset. And it's not great. And he gets, of course, no TMs at all prior to beating Brock. Now there's some good stuff over there. Hypnosis isn't bad, and Dream Eater for a final learned attack isn't terrible. It synergizes with Hypnosis. But Hoothoot's stats aren't any better than Pidgey's. They're just distributed a little different. Like, yeah, it's probably a little bit better than Pidgey because it can use Psychic type moves, but it doesn't get, like, Quick Attack to maintain priority or anything, so I honestly kind of think Pidgey's a little bit more usable. Point is, my female Hoothoot, who I named Hoot, because that's what a Hoothoot says, I would imagine, doesn't have any options to use against Brock. Now, getting past the first gym leader in Generation 2 was a little bit easier even with a Pidgey, because he didn't really have any special advantage against me. And if this were Generation 1, I'd probably have an easier time overall, honestly, because he didn't have any rock moves in that. But Brock has rock moves in this game, so he can hit me for super effective damage. And even though Hoothoot is a little tanky, it can't really take many. And it's not super fast either, so considering that rock move is Rock Tomb, which lowers my speed, getting hit by it is doubly bad. Like, I come at him the first time I get into town, when I'm a lower level even than his Geodude, and I don't stand a chance. And I keep trying multiple times at multiple levels as I grind up in the area. And I just can't beat him. Like, it gets to the point eventually, I'm probably not going to show most of this, but it gets to the point eventually where I can beat his Geodude, and so I kind of keep rebattling his Geodude to get some extra experience, but that takes so long, I eventually abandon it. And, like, I eventually get Hypnosis, right? And Reflect, too, which is also kind of noteworthy. Not that I ever actually used it in this run, but it's not a bad move, right? And so with Hypnosis, I'm able to kind of, like barely get an advantage over him sometimes on some attempts. Like, I think with enough luck, I could beat him with Hypnosis and, like, 5 more levels past Hypnosis. 6 tops. But it was just taking so long to try. I just turned on some episodes of Quantum Leap, the classic one. I'm doing my first real full watch through the entire series. And I just grinded till I got all the way up to level 34. It took freaking forever. And I eventually did start playing the game at 2 times speed at some point during this. I don't remember when. Just to make things go a little quicker. And I grinded all the way up to level 34 when I got Confusion, at which point I was super over-leveled, and I had a move that attacked the stat that these Pokemon aren't good at, so I curb stomped them. It was so trivial, as were all of the trainer battles from here to Cerulean City. I curb stomped Team Rocket, and the fossil-obsessed guy, what is his trainer class? I don't even remember. In Mount Moon, picked myself up a Helix Fossil, of course. What other choice is there? Just FYI, I know what the other choice is. That was a joke. There's only one other choice. I do know what it was. I only have a moderately harder time against my rival in Cerulean. I curb stomp the Nugget Bridge. I battle everybody on the route up to the north, which I specifically visited as early as possible because you guys will know this move from my previous challenge with Pidgey. This is where you get attract. So I gave that to Hoothoot. I might not have if I hadn't ended up with a female. I did not reset for a female, but I did get a female Hoothoot, so I gave it attract. That's going to help me a lot in the future. It's going to turn the RNG against my opponent. And because I am so overleveled at this point, getting to it and then getting from it to Bill to get the SS ticket is trivial. Misty, though, is not. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Her Starmie's only, like, level 21. But I had trouble with her. I had to attempt her a couple times. Even after getting a few extra levels, even. She was really genuinely difficult. My Confusion doesn't do much damage to her Starmie. Her Water Pulse still does a decent chunk of damage, and it can confuse, and because her Starfish are genderless, I can't use Attract to mitigate that damage. The best I could do was try Hypnosis, which is notoriously low accuracy. And like, yeah, it only took me a couple tries to get past her. And unfortunately, the next gym leader I'm going to have to take on is Surge, who, like, Attract will help me against him, but he's super effective against me. So it's genuinely a good thing I got these extra levels when I did. I would have just had to get them anyway to get past this point in the game. Fortunately, having them gets me through the SSN and even past my rival there very easily. The only Pokemon that even really tried to fight me was his Squirtle, which wasn't really a threat. That got me Cut, which I taught to the Oddish that I named Russell and added to my other potential HM mules. Blub, the Magikarp, and Rumble, the Geodude. I don't know why I went with this sound theme today. I just thought it'd be funny. And after trying at the stupid trash can puzzle for minutes on end, I did eventually get to Surge. Had to try twice against him too. But thankfully, an Attract did help here. He wasn't that big of an issue. His Voltorb can't really do much to me. It kind of sucks. It's only really good status speed. And unless I get a low roll, his Pikachu goes down to 1 Confusion. Raichu is literally the only threat here, and I happened to get enough good RNG with Attract that he wasn't able to knock me out on, I believe it was only my second try. But at this point, like, I've got Confusion, which is good for hitting physically bulky guys or the good Jillian poison types in this game. I've got Peck, which is stab and super effective against things like grass and bug. And I've got a couple of status moves. But, like, those status moves are the best things here. My attacking moves are really falling behind in power. Things are going to get rough before they get easier. I'm probably going to have to grind again really soon. Like Hoothoot is just not that strong. And my opponents have way more move variety in this generation than they used to in Generation 2. Hoothoot just has a harder time here than Pidgey did in that challenge. Thankfully, though, that's not going to be a huge problem for much longer. I run back up to Celadon to turn in the bike voucher that I got from the Pokemon Fan Club, and while I'm here, I go a little bit east to battle some trainers for some experience, but also to get the TM for Aerial Ace. to replace Peck. It's just a much better move, for this point in the game at least. Then I run all the way back to Vermilion. Hey, I know it's not efficient. I did say this wasn't a speedrun. To take Diglett's Cave back to the earlier routes, where I catch enough Pokemon to be eligible to get the HM for Flash, so I can run all the way back to Celadon again, and go further east to the Rock Tunnel, which I hate the Rock Tunnel. I hate it so much. It's so long and boring, and I can never remember the exact path through. But thankfully, with Aerial Ace, I didn't have much of a problem. It didn't help in every single battle, and rock types were still kind of threatening, but I have Hypnosis, I have Attract, and I have Confusion to do damage to their special moves. I did have to use an elixir that I found in here to restore some of my power points in order to get all the way through, but it wasn't too bad. And now I'm on a whole new part of the map. I can move west from here to get to Celadon City, where I can get the tea from the Game Freak building to give to the gate guards so that I can enter Saffron City. And while I'm here, I can pick up an Eevee that I can evolve with a Water Stone into a Vaporeon to teach Surf, since I'm not going to switch train Blub all the way to a Gyarados. I decided against that. It sounded very tedious. I do have him in case I ever end up in a double battle, though, so I have somebody who can just sit there and do literally nothing. That'll be his role on the team. From here, I head to Saffron City first before fighting Erica to get Psychic from Mr. Psychic to replace Confusion. Now I fight Erica, and there's basically nothing she can do against me. She can still tank fairly well with Tangela, and she still has status afflicting moves, but she doesn't stand a chance. And so I beat her clearly, and then move on to the Team Rocket hideout, where my power points again become an issue, but this time because Psychic only has 10, and that's not a lot, and I'm relying on Psychic type moves pretty often at this point. So while I'm in here, I actually have to make a difficult choice. While I'm in here, I level up enough to get my final level up move, Dream Eater. And I could replace something other than Psychic with it, but right now at this point in the game, I don't feel like clogging my moveset with 2 Psychic type coverage moves is really a good idea. I feel like Attract is more important, so I get rid of Psychic for it. And already at this point, I know this may end up being a mistake. But even though it relies on Hypnosis to be usable, it's basically gated off behind Hypnosis' success, and Hypnosis isn't the most reliable move. Dream Eater does have more power points than Psychic, and power points are going to be an issue for me on my final moveset. And it keeps me healthy. And I mentioned Hoothoot is a little tanky. It's not as fragile as some of the other birds, so being able to recover after I've taken a hit that didn't quite knock me out could be really valuable. So I think this is a risk worth taking. I think this is a roll of the dice worth rolling, so to speak. And it does get me through the rest of the Team Rocket hideout. I get the Sylph Scope and make my way up to the top of Pokemon Tower. I realize at this point I completely forgot to mention that I did battle my rival here last time I was here. It was very uneventful, hence why I didn't think to talk about it. And between Aerial Ace for the Fragile Ghosts and Psychic for all the Team Rocket Poison types, getting through here is again a breeze, giving me the Pokeflute, letting me head south, get rid of Snorlax, and make my way to Fuchsia. After running back to Celadon first to get Fly, because I completely forgot to get it, teaching it to Hoot as well, giving me probably her final moveset for this playthrough. Like, something's going to come up later that might change that, but I still haven't decided as of the time of recording this bit of voiceover whether or not that's going to actually change her moveset. We'll see. We'll see when we get there. A little bit of foreshadowing for you guys. A little bit of intrigue building. But yeah, from there I head into Fuchsia City, getting some pretty decent experience along the way. I avoided some of the trainers, but there's a lot of them, so I still ended up getting some decent experience. Here, I completely curb stomp Koga with Dream Eater, but getting to him has proven a little difficult, because already those issues with PowerPoints that I mentioned earlier are starting to become apparent. Koga has a ton of jugglers in his gym as his gym trainers, and they're either hard to avoid or they're mandatory. And they have Drowsies and Hypnos who are pretty durable and immune to being put to sleep. So I have to use Fly on them, and Fly does miss occasionally, and it only has 15 PowerPoints. So I had to leave the gym, heal up, and come back, which is a thing that you guys know I don't like to do. Koga himself, though, was an absolute pushover, as I mentioned. And from there I head to the Safari Zone to pick up Double Team, which could be useful, but I'm probably not going to use it. The Golden Teeth and the HM for Surf, which I give to Woof, the Vaporeon. I go turn in the Golden Teeth for Strength, which I give to Rumble, the Geodude. And then I head back to Saffron to take on the Martial Arts Gym, or whatever the heck this place is called. Get myself a Hitmonchan that I named Haya, just because I thought it'd be funny. And then I go take on Silphco. And I have only just gotten started on that when I accidentally turned my emulator off, putting me back to before I defeated Koga, because I'm an idiot. So I go and do all that stuff I just did all over again, which sucked. And then I start on Silphco a second time. And Silphco is going to be annoying because, again, my PowerPoints aren't great. And I might as well just talk about it now, while I've got some just generic Silphco footage to talk over. I did, during all of that mess, pick up the TM for return. So I do have an option if I reach a point where PowerPoints really become an issue. Because even though Attract is helpful, one of my moves is not gated off behind it. And there are, of course, Pokemon in the game that it can't be used on, that being Pokemon that are the same gender as mine. So there may reach a point in this playthrough where, just like with Pidgey, the only real viable solution for moving forward is to teach my Pokemon Return. But we'll see, because Return is a pretty potent move. I don't want to use it unless I have to, but if I get too annoyed having to leave this place to heal up my PowerPoints, I may just give it to my Hoothoot here and now. We'll have to see how impatient I get. Fortunately, though, I guess, because who likes to be annoyed, I never actually reach a point where I have to leave, because I actually remember my way through here way better than I expected to. Find the beds that let you heal and restore your PowerPoints prior to getting to the infamous Rival Fivel. And even though I have to fight him a couple times, I remember to save at the right spot this time. So even though each time it's clear he's going to beat me, I just reset the ROM. It doesn't take long. I think it took... I didn't actually note it. Probably should have. I think it took 3 tries with him. Unfortunately, at this point, though, it seems like it's just going to take a couple attempts every single fight now. Every single major fight. Because it takes 2 attempts to beat Giovanni here. And then after I get out of here and go take on Sabrina, it takes a couple of attempts to beat her. And then after darting my way through the Cinnabar Mansion, I remember my way through that way better than I thought I would too. It took me 3 tries to beat Blaine. I did beat all of them. And even though I did purposefully go and get a couple of levels before taking on Sabrina, because she's always kind of intimidating, and I probably could have stood to get a couple more to make knocking out her Mr. Mime a little more consistent, it wasn't too bad. It's just if my RNG goes a little wrong, things can go really wrong. I've noticed that paralysis really messes me up, since I have basically 2 two-turn moves as my main moves, since I have to use Hypnosis and then Dream Eater, and since Fly takes 2 turns. So paralysis can really make things bad. And to mitigate half of that, the cut in speed, I did give Hoot the Quick Claw that I found in the Safari Zone. And that helps a little bit, but RNG really does have to go my way in order for me to get through these fights. Fortunately, it doesn't have to go so my way that it takes a long time to get through them. Like, my level is genuinely fine. My damage output is genuinely fine. It's just that I can't really take many hits. Now, if it reaches a point where I'm having to attempt every major fight like 4 or 5 times. I'll probably grind some more again, but I'm getting to the point where I'm so overleveled that grinding even a couple of levels takes a long time. But I do get past Sabrina, and I do get past Blaine, and between that and Rival Fivel and Giovanni and all of the trainers in Silphco, I've been paying close attention to when I use Attract. I used it a little bit in the rival fight, which makes me think I might use it in the final rival fight at the end of the game. But like, if I had Return in its place, couldn't I just wail on his Pokemon instead of relying on Attract to give me more time to set up Hypnosis? I don't know. I'm still trying to decide, and I can buy another Attract at the Celadon Mart. So like, I think I am going to swap out Attract for Return and just see how it feels. And if I need to go back, I can. It's just, then I lose Return. I don't think you can buy another Return. Maybe you can, and maybe I'm overthinking this completely. Maybe I could just swap between them whenever I want, because it's not like I'm spending any of my money here. So I do that, but I do that after I save right in front of Giovanni at his gym, so that I can go back and make a different choice if I feel like it. But contrary to what I literally just said, with Return on my moveset, I get past Giovanni in one try. Like, I haven't talked much about him in this playthrough, and he's definitely the strongest here that he's been all game, but like, his Kangaskhan is his strongest Pokemon, at least in terms of this particular playthrough. Now, the rest of his Pokemon are just too fragile against Psychic-type moves. And then the final pre-league rival fight, I beat it in one try, too. Like, I know the league isn't going to go this smooth, but I think I would have had resets on both of these fights if I didn't have Return to just do some solid damage with, so I keep it. I make my way to and then through Victory Road, and on the way, I take the time to level up to level 80, thinking that's a good place to start my attempts against the league. I don't know for sure that it's going to be enough to get me going, but I want to give it a try at this level. And the reason I don't know is because Lorelei I expect to be the most difficult member of the league. Lance will probably be a close second, but I expect Lorelei to be very difficult. Because, not even considering the fact that she can freeze me, which thankfully she never does in any of the, oh lord, almost 24 attempts I had to make against her total. She does super effective damage, and her Pokemon are pretty tanky for the most part. Like, her Lapras can just wreck me. Even her first Dugong is rough, and her Slowbro, don't even get me started. That thing can yawn at me, and that just shuts me down. Obviously, I've been using sleep to shut down opponents this entire run. Clearly it works, and she is paying me back for it. I come at her multiple times at this level. I realize I'm just not doing enough damage to knock her out in few enough hits to avoid damage from things like Ice Beam or to avoid the effects of Yawn. So I reset to before I came into her chamber, and I go level up 5 more times to level 85. And I try again a few more times, and I'm still just not doing enough damage. So I use the only 3 rare candies that I picked up over the course of this run to level up to level 88. And I try again. And I have to try a few more times, but I do manage to get past her. It required some lucky RNG against Lapras, but I made it. This brings me to Agatha, who I have to try against her a couple of times, but she wasn't too bad. Her ghost types are fragile against my Fly, since it's a physical attack, and all of her Pokemon are weak to my Psychic type moves, so all in all she wasn't too much of a pain. Problem is, when I get done with her, I have practically no power points left, and I think that's not a problem. I've only got 2 more opponents left, the last member of the Elite 3 and the champion. So I'll just go use the max elixir that I've had in my bag this entire time. Except I don't have a max elixir in my bag, I have a max ether. And there is no one move that I can ether up to get me through these next 2 fights. So I let myself get knocked out, look up where I can find a max elixir, go get it, and then come back, and then battle my way all the way through Lorelei and Agatha again, thankfully. I only had to reset against Lorelei once this time. And I go into a proper battle against Lance. And guessing that Lance was going to be the second most difficult member of the league was right. His Gyarados is annoying enough, cutting my attacks so that my return and my fly don't do as much damage, especially when return is going to be my main attack against his Dragonairs. His Dragonairs can also paralyze me, which sucks because it cuts my speed, and they can cast Safeguard, which prevents me from hypnosising, and they have shed skin, so if I hypnosis them, there's a very good chance that they'll just shake it off. Like they have twice the chance to wake up, basically. And I tried multiple times against him, like so many times against him, until finally, luckily, somehow, I managed to get past both of his Dragonairs. His Gyarados and his Aerodactyl weren't that difficult, because, I mean, I could just put Gyarados to sleep and Aerodactyl's squishy to special moves. But I got past both of his Dragonairs with lucky hypnosises, keeping them from doing anything to me. And I get to his Dragonite. It's well enough to get past it. Like I'm strong enough to put it to sleep a little bit, regain some health, and fight my way past it. Even with full restores, it didn't matter. It was extremely lucky. I had some very good RNG in this battle, but I made it. And the champion wasn't all that. Like, his team isn't bad or anything, don't get me wrong, and I did have to try against him, I think, 3 times total. And he can certainly mess me up. His AI seems to be good enough that he can recognize if a Pokemon is significantly stronger than his team and try to mess them up a little bit. He lowered my speed with Rhydon so that I was slow enough that he could get off Reflect with Alakazam to mitigate its weakness to physical attacks, for example, stuff like that. So it wasn't like an easy win, but I mean, I fought him so many times at this point, I knew how to handle each of his Pokemon. I got unlucky enough a couple of times with Pokemon waking up at just the wrong times that, like I said, I had to reset a couple of times, but it wasn't bad. I beat him. I allowed Hoot to finally evolve as a reward for winning the game, since she did level up once during the battle with him, and entered into the Hall of Fame, completing the entire game with only a Hoothoot in battle. And a Magikarp once in a double battle that I ended up in at one point, but that doesn't really count. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy doing these challenges. This only took me like 3 days to put together, because I was able to play through the game while doing other stuff. So I'm going to try to get more of these out more often. I already have an idea for another one. I kind of alluded to it in my last challenge video, but if you guys have suggestions for challenges you'd like to see, let me know. I'm super interested in hearing what your suggestions might be. In the meantime, though, as per usual, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.